If we've come to a point in the project where we feel that we need to revise the estimates of our future project costs because we might already be over budget or over time or various scope of the project could have changed, then we need to revise what our estimated costs are going to be. So we have two methods in which to do that. The first is to revise the estimated cost at completion. So this calculation is a revised estimated cost at completion, uses the cumulative actual cost of work completed to date plus a revised estimated cost to complete the remaining work. So this allows us to change our original baseline durations because our new information tells us that our estimates were not correct based on what our actual cost to dates are. If we're going to forecast the cost at completion, or this EACF, this uses actual cost to date plus an efficiency index to project final costs. So the calculation for that is on the next slide. So here we have the equation for the revised estimated cost at completion is on top. So we have a revised estimated cost at completion equals the cumulative actual cost of work completed to date plus our revised estimated cost to complete remaining work. The equation for the forecasted total cost of completion looks at what we've actually spent as a percentage of what work has actually been done versus what work we need to do. So if we're looking at our actual costs at our actual percentage completion, so what is our cumulative cost index to date, and what is the total budget of our baseline, what is the cumulated cost of work completed to date. So when we're looking at estimating that final project cost, we would use the complete performance index. This complete performance index measures the amount of value each remaining dollar in the budget must earn to stay within the budget. So what is the ratio of whether or not we can go over budget? So a ratio less than 1 indicates an ability to complete the project without using all of the remaining budget. Any estimate over 1 shows that we're going to go over budget, and we might want to look at decreasing the amount of scope, trying to find a way to change our schedule, or looking at ways that we can cut costs from the project. Of course, these are not the kind of control issues that we want to get to when we're in the middle of a project. This is an example of a monthly status report. So what is the project number? What is the project priority? The date of the status estimate, our various valuations. So our planned value of the project, the earned value of the project, the actual cost that we have schedule variation and a cost variation. And we have some information here. So we have a status summary. Our project is approximately 25 days behind schedule. We have a cost variance where we've overpaid $30,736 right now. Why is this happening? So that information is in the report. Any major changes from the last report. So we have that we lost a design team for the project, which caused some overruns, and we don't see any future issues happening. So we've changed our projected cost at completion, which is going to show a total overrun. We currently have an overrun, but we presume that overrun is going to be even greater by the end of the project. This is an example of a status report for a project. So we have a project, we have its date, and then we have the description of the various work packages within that project and what those year-to-date amounts are and what their variances are. These are the kind of examples that we would look at for very large projects. So what we look at then is what is the total we can see at the bottom. So we have our total the planned value, the total earned value to date, the actual cost for this status report, and then our year-to-date amounts. And what are our variances? And we can see by the CPI and the SPI that we're currently behind schedule and we have cost overruns. So these are the kinds of reports and data analysis that we would maintain on a project for multiple areas. And then we would look at percentage of completion. So we would have various, all of our various work packages. So what were the different projects that had to be completed in order? What were the values of them? And then what are actual costs and our schedule variances on them? Other control issues that we have within project management, measurement, and performance is technical performance measurement. It is much more difficult to measure technical performance measurement. We can see that actual cost to budgeted cost and actual schedule to budgeted schedule is universal across all projects. We can say if I plan to have a schedule done in 45 days and it took 50 days, I was over. I had a schedule variance. A technical performance measurement variance is not as easy to dictate because different projects are going to have different technical performance measurement requirements. Some examples the textbook gives are with software development. What is this software supposed to do versus what is it currently doing? They also talk about a car or automobile performance. So what was the performance in the project for this automobile versus what was delivered for the automobile? We've also talked about scope creep in a previous chapter. So scope creep is a very real control issue in project management. We know that scope creep can create schedule delays and cost overruns. So we need to make sure that we are managing scope creep, especially in the case of just minor changes. Remember, just minor tweaks here and there across a long project can actually become a very big performance change or total scope change over the time. So making sure that we're managing customer expectations for what can be added to a project and our project team's expectations. Sometimes our project team is the one who's more interested in scope creep than a customer is. You know, we might have a project team that's creating software and one of the team members knows this cool new trick and they think, well, I know how to do it, so let's just add it and it could be fun. But that's a kind of scope creep that can still happen that can cause schedule delays and cost overruns. Any baseline changes. So changes happen during a project. We just need to make sure how we're manage them. Some changes can be really beneficial. They can end up actually saving us time and money. And other changes we can't control. So that's part of our risk management. We can have changes because of environmental issues or changes because of regulation changes while we're in the midst of our project. We can also have changes because of weather delays or any number of things. And then we have data acquisition. So data acquisition is time consuming and costly. So this is how we're collecting our data. It takes a lot of time and energy to collect and analyze data. So we want to make sure that our data collection process isn't becoming a hindrance to our project. Our data needs to be informative to us and beneficial to us without creating scheduling and costing problems because of how complicated we've made our system. When we look at this slide, this graph shows an example of scope changes to a baseline. So we have our original baseline, and then we have changes caused from any various reasons, scope creep or external changes. In this example, we look the textbook goes back to the Denver Airport project from chapter 7 and how the city of Denver decided to make a major design change to the project after the project construction had already started, which caused a significant overrun and time delay in costs. This is an example of a communication plan for a specific project. So what information do we gather for who, how do we present it to them? So we have senior management needs monthly and bi-monthly reports, just a milestone report. The project staff and the customer want weekly time and cost reports. And who's responsible for collecting that information, who's responsible for presenting that information. So we remember that we want the project manager to communicate with the customer. That's that one voice that we talked about in a previous chapter. So if the project manager is always communicating with the customer is always getting the same information in the same terminology, rather than if various people from our project team start communicating with the customer, they might communicate different things, use different terminology, and that can cause communication issues with our customer. And that is the end of chapter